A few hours later, Duncan, Marin, and Kira stood quietly together after the feast had ended. Velius, though in discussion with Elfried and Nicodemus, was not far from them, and all three men kept a watchful eye on the young trio, as did the other celestial knights in attendance. While this went unnoticed by Marin and Kira, Duncan could feel the weight of all the gazes, and he did not like it. However, he was determined not to darken Marin's evening and chose to pretend that he did not notice. "It's so strange seeing you in a dress, Marin," Duncan said at last with a small chuckle. "But you do look very lovely," Kira said encouragingly, "just like I said you would," she added with a playful nudge to Marin's side. "Oh, there's no doubt about that," Duncan said with a nod before grinning teasingly, "but it's still strange seeing you looking like, well, a girl." "Oh, please don't say that anymore," Marin said with a soft whine before all but burying her face in her silver goblet and taking a deceptively small sip of dandelion wine before lowering her goblet once more and simply gazing into its contents. "I already feel silly and ridiculous enough. I know I'm not nearly as lovely as Kira, but..." "Now that is ridiculous, Marin," Kira said while giving Duncan a small but meaningful shove and the smallest of glares. "Of course you're lovely. Duncan didn't mean to upset you. Besides," she said with a playful grin, "if you really looked silly and ridiculous, you wouldn't be the object of attention for the unattached males in attendance," she said with a small indicative nod. Marin blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Duncan chuckled. "Kira, would you care to do the honors?" Kira giggled softly while gently turning Marin's head, and her giggles only intensified when her friend's face turned nearly as red as her hair when she caught sight of all the male elves watching her. "Oh, Marin," she chided gently when the half-elf ducked her head and hid behind her hair while simultaneously burying her face in her goblet once more. "You should be flattered, not frightened. There's nothing to be frightened of." "So you say," Marin's muffled voice replied from the goblet before she raised her head a bit. "How am I supposed to know if they genuinely find me pretty or if they simply find me appealing because I'm a princess?" "Because our people are not ruled by such petty things, Marin," Kira answered with a reassuring smile. "You can rest assured that it is your beauty and not your crown that is captivating your prospective suitors," she added with a playful wink. "Please don't call them that," Marin pleaded softly. "But more than one of them easily could be," Kira said with her smile still in place. "In fact, perhaps one of them is your future husband and you simply don't know it yet." "It's easy for you to say, Kira," Marin said mournfully. "You have your entire life ahead of you that's filled to the brim with possibilities, whereas I..." She sighed softly before tucking her hair behind her ears. "I'm sorry," she said as she raised her gaze from her goblet and settled it upon her two friends. "I shouldn't be dwelling upon such things, especially not tonight." "Marin, you're entitled to your feelings and your fears," Duncan said gently while offering his friend a small but reassuring smile. "Just not tonight. This is a night for joy and laughter, not fear and worry. Now, can you agree to that?" "I suppose so," Marin said with a sigh. "Good," Duncan said with a smile. "Now, when that handsome elf finishes walking over here to ask you to dance, I recommend you say yes." Marin blinked. "Handsome elf? What?" She turned and found herself nose to chest with one of the elves who had been watching her before. Gulping softly, Marin slowly raised her gaze to the handsome face that was framed by raven black hair that fell past his shoulders. "Oh." "Happy birthday, princess," the elf said with a formal bow of his head. "Thank you," Marin said softly with a shy smile. "And you are?" "Taliesin Roseleaf," he said with a smile as he took Marin's hand in his own and lifted it to his lips to brush a light kiss to her knuckles. His sapphire eyes gazing down into Marin's. "My father is your grandfather's chief advisor, and I would be most honored if you would join me in a dance." Marin's face was once again as red as her hair, and it was with a trembling hand that she placed her goblet on a nearby table. "That's very kind of you, but I—" Before Marin could come up with an excuse to decline Taliesin's request, she felt Kira's hand against the small of her back. "Of course you'll accept her invitation," Kira said with a smile as she gently, but firmly, pushed Marin towards Taliesin. "Excellent," Taliesin said with a smile as he began leading Marin towards the section of the clearing that had been set up for dancing. "That should lift her spirits," Kira said with a smile as Jig began playing. Her smile never once wavered, even when she raised her goblet to her lips. Duncan winced when Marin accidentally stepped on Taliesin's toe. Oh dear. In all of our planning on helping Marin to enjoy herself, did either of us stop to consider whether or not she in fact knew how to dance? An expression of horror, combined with sheepishness, etched itself into Kira's face. Honestly, the thought never once occurred to me. She resisted the urge to cover her eyes when Marin stepped on the hem of her dress and fell forward into Taliesin. "Oh, gods!" Duncan grinned and chuckled. "Taliesin actually didn't seem to mind that." He winced. "Though I can't say the same for the accidental kick in the shin."